Starting out with South Michigan Avenue, like doing facelifts of these structures. So, it can beautify Michigan Avenue. And right across the street is Grant Park. So, South Michigan Avenue Hilton Hotel, where an individual I knew was in the catering department there, and we used to host the Chinese Chamber of Commerce annual event there. So, again, the Congress Hotel and all of these need a facelift. Roosevelt University, again, these buildings, and they can do targeted tax incentive financing, where not only can it be a reduction, it can be a refundable credit. So some of these institutions don't need the deduction, they need the money. And so, depending on their financial, they can offer it both ways. A tax credit, where you get a deduction, and a refundable credit, where it pumps money into you. And so you can get the work done today, and then when you file your taxes, you get the credit back, and you have to take the interest into account, but the interest is tax deductible, and so it minimizes that part, and you have the interest rate shield on that, or tax shield on that. And so they can fund it into two different things. And so they can fund this into renovating these buildings where otherwise they stay unrenovated, and the city can do targeted TIF zones to bring up the infrastructure. And yes, bringing it up here brings a lot of value to the dollar. There's a lot of upside potential in doing TIFs here, and as they bring this up, what happens? The backside is property taxes. So they give today to receive tomorrow, and that tomorrow money can go into bond issues, and those bond issues can fund projects in poorer communities. So by uplifting this community, they can use it in that way to fund poorer communities and uplift them. So it's you scratch my back, I scratch your back. And so they start bringing these communities here up, like the Gold Coast truly becomes golden. The Magnificent Mile becomes the Magnificent Miles. And they finally redo State Street and bring it back to its prominence. And in turn, as that becomes more prominent, it funds back. It's just like uplifting Museum Park to do that build out with the Bears when they move, which I hope they move. So, again, revitalizing and bringing in those institutions, they can create tax incentive financing to build out all that collaborative effort, from the planetarium, the Shedd Aquarium, the Field Museum, to the Museum of Science and Industry, and they can build out all their research and intellectual property hub right there in Museum Park, further building out their capabilities. And yes, giving the money to the planetarium through a refundable credit to build out its telescopes and so on. And then you get the money back through the tax revenue that it generates. Now, it's a nonprofit, but their employees pay taxes. So remember that. Nonprofit employees pay taxes. So you don't get it directly from the entity, you get it from their employees who govern higher wages, and so you make it back. And anyone that's living outside of the city of Chicago, that's fine. The state does a matching back to the city of Chicago. So they pay taxes out, it goes into the state, and the state gives a portion of that back to the city of Chicago for employees that work in the city, generating their revenue, but don't live in the city. And so it gives them a percentage of that targets back into the city, further building things up so their employees can live outside the city and choose where they live, but a percentage of that income tax revenue goes back to the city for every employee that generates. And it's the same thing for any municipality. You have your revenue that's generated from the businesses in, and then people that live there work outside. And it's like if you live in Wisconsin, Marilee generated her revenue in the state of Illinois, and she had to file 2 tax returns, one for Wisconsin and one for the state of Illinois, and she had to pay taxes into the state of Illinois as well. And she was the first female partner in the big accounting firm. She worked for Arthur Andersen, but she was the first one overall, and that's the University of Illinois has their accounting school, had Arthur Andersen, and she was, I think she went to the University of Illinois. They had some plaque up there or something to her. But then my other female friend, she was the first in consulting history of the big consulting now of EY and them. She was #1 salesperson as a female. And nothing against men, but she was the first female to become #1. And she worked originally for Ernst & Young, and that's how she knew Jen, and she went to school with me at the University of Arizona. So I used to do Trivia Pursuit and everything with Marilee, and we were a tremendous team. And anyways, there is, these 2 women that I've been around were juggernauts, and I wanted Jen to be mentored more by her, and she could have mentored her more in Jen in being able to bring in sales and build out real foundations in Chicago. But the first breakdown, everything went sideways, and now the second breakdown, all of what I was trying to accomplish goes sideways, and I constantly get pushed on other people's agenda, which is not a good thing. So these are 2 historic buildings, the water towers. And yes, they built that underground tunnel by hand to the pumping station that sits, I don't know what they said, 2 miles offshore, making sure it has very clean water. But the funny thing is, the city of Chicago relies on Lake Michigan being very clean. That's why they reverse the river. And some reason they forget about that. And it's the biggest lake that's inside one country. Meaning the other Great Lakes share with Canada. Lake Michigan shares with no one. It's inside the United States. So it's the largest domestic lake, making it unique because it's totally sovereign to the United States. So anyways, and that means Chicago in that has a lake where it's sovereign. Now through the St. Lawrence and that, you can go from Lake Michigan to the Atlantic Ocean, right? And you can go from Lake Michigan to the Gulf. My friends ran boats. Not only does the St. Lawrence go this way, but it goes back out. So what comes in can go out the Atlantic from Chicago. And what comes into Chicago, as they ran boats to Florida through the Gulf, and yes, they had to take it around the tip to get to the east side, but it comes out through, you go up into the Mississippi, but there's also through the lakes, through the rivers, you don't even have to enter the Mississippi. There's two ways that end up in the Gulf. But they took boats back and forth. They got paid to take boats down and boats back. And so, again, they did this, and we don't understand, and we've forgotten that we can use this to get stuff to the Gulf and stuff to the Atlantic. And when you get it to the Atlantic, it reaches Europe in a very short time via cargo. So you can feed into the New Jersey ports and the New York ports, truly, to ship out to Europe. And so it makes it a very fast way to get large amounts of cargo to Europe through the waterway. And so Chicago is sitting on, and Wisconsin and all that is sitting on, Michigan, immense amount of wealth that they're just not tapping into. And so that builds out the diversification in many different ways, and that's what made Chicago great, was its diversity from rail to air to pipelines to shipping to semi-corridors. So it was hitting on 5 different vehicles of transportation. Yes, pipelines coming in here to our refining facilities. That is a form of transportation. And so it made it a logistical hub. So we need to build out each of these 5 forms of transportation, further increasing the logistical capabilities. And that creates a lot of opportunity for well-paying positions. Because when you can do things at scale, then paying people well is a drip in the bucket. And that's what scale gives you, the ability to pay people well where it's just a drip in the bucket wages. And so, again, it creates an immense amount of opportunity. As I come down here, I'm at the tip of the Golden Triangle, where State and Rush meet. This is the tip. And this is Cedar. This is the end. The beginning is Oak Street behind me. That's the bottom of the triangle. This is the tip, or the top of the triangle. So, where Cedar crosses over Rush and State. And then we move into Division, which, again, this transition between the Gold Coast, the Golden Triangle, and Rush Street has been a void. It doesn't fit in well with each other. And that's why it's like a dead zone and things die in between. Because there's no foundational integration. And it's like, this crowd, how does this crowd feed into everything else? So again, they got to figure out how they benefit each other. place. Which, yeah, alcohol tends to be corrosive on enamel and that. So it's a very short strip, and they haven't integrated this half of it. So these places closed down. No, Wingstop's open. Oh, that's good. Hello, guy. So they're opening a little bit later. So I used to work down here at Dave & Buster's, which is no longer. They should be looking to relaunch Dave & Buster's in downtown Chicago. Since the projects are gone now, relaunching it in downtown would be a good idea. So they're in Schaumburg, but they need the relaunch down here. And so finding a place for Dave & Buster's, it needs a big footprint. And it used to be up here on Clark, and I'll go around, and when I turn here and then go back in the right direction and show you, it could even reemerge in the same location now. Just like HIP did. They had to shut down and redo their thing to get rid of all the, bad clientele. Truly, to get rid of all the bad clientele, they had to shut down and then let it air out. And then they did renovations during that time, and then they reemerged, and it's nicer. Truly. But it had to shut down and purge to get rid of all that clientele. Anyways, right down here, I'll show you where. And there used to be a fitness formula company right here where Chase is. Not where Chase is. I'll show you where. But I used to be a member of the FCC, and fitness formula company that's woman owned. The husband passed away and she inherited it. And so it was right here, and I'll show you on the next street. And again, it was nice. I had my dry cleaner on one side of Dave & Buster's that I dropped all my stuff off, and then I used to go to the gym, which was right next to Dave & Buster's, and they had a discount for Dave & Buster employees. Here it is. It's still here. So in this building where the FCC is, which you can't see behind the tree, you have Austin. There it is, right there. And you're probably not going to be able to see it. There it is. But here is where Dave & Buster's was. They could just reopen again here. See, the bad legacy clientele is gone. And they can reemerge in the exact same structure. Why not release it? It's in a good place. Anyways, it's in a good place. So you have here it's right off of Oak Street in this area, and you have all this clientele that originally didn't go because it had a horrible crowd, and even it was up after the projects went away, but the legacy, the people didn't go because they should have done under new management and refreshed it, and they didn't refresh it. And so it basically failed. They're a publicly traded company. And so here is Renewal Church. RC, okay. I'm not familiar with them. One way only. My bad. Thought it was a two-way. It's two-way up here on Oak. But again, it's right off and it could reemerge, and it's a big footprint. And we had a downstairs bar right off of a private room where they could have hosted all kinds of events for pharmaceutical companies, for financial companies, and there's a lot of different organizations that run these meetings for clientele. So Home Depot can do it for their contractors here in Chicago and do an educational seminar, because they don't have a banquet in that, and they can run Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards can do high educational events where they do lunch and learns or dinner and learns for contractors, general contractors, and they can show how they can use their supply chains to fill their needs for different products for their projects. Even James McHugh and them, Jimmy, they can come to them. And so you have Walsh Construction, you have McHugh Construction, all that, and they can host an event from Lowe's, Home Depot, and Menards at that facility. And they can bring these people in, and you can make sophisticated pitches on how they can use their different supply chains. I was doing it when I was going to do a big project. This is when I was with the Schaumburg Young Professionals before I met. Was it before or during? I forget. But this guy owned a lot of landfills. And I met him through my friend Adam. And we were going to use Bank Financial. And then we were going to do GE, which we could have went through App to do it. And we were going to do Scale, buy boxcars of refrigerators and washers and dryers, but buy them at, large scale, so we could get a significant discount in that. And so I could have worked with him, and I don't remember who he is, but converting his landfills. So he can take a legacy landfill, open it up, remove the soil, the top of it, and then go through and burn everything to create energy into a plasma furnace. And it can be wired to pump energy into the grid. You cut a contract with Exelon and that to provide energy into the grid. And that's the first stage. And then the money from the energy helps supply the build out of the second. You have to do remediation after you empty the landfill. And so it helps pay for the remediation. And then the land is reopened. And remember, landfills, and the thing they don't think about, do you know they block groundwater from working? Do you know that, right? Yes, they have drain tiles and that, but it prevents it because they have clay underlining. They don't want it leaching and so on. Well, where is steel containers going to go? Tell me, where are steel cans going to go that are in the landfill? Do you know how long it takes for metal to break down? So you could recapture shitloads of metal and many other things in there, all kinds of plastic and everything, and you get rid of the landfill and you open up the land so it functions normally. So again, I am the reverse of landfills. I want them to all go away. And what isn't, this is what they didn't do with waste management. What they can't recapture, they just put into a plasma furnace and create energy. And if they want, that energy just feeds in to power their own plants, and it goes into hybrid vehicles, and it powers electrical hybrid. They do electrical and gas. So it can provide 50% of the energy. So again, and they can convert the methane, anything, they bleed that off before they open it up. You don't want to release a lot of methane. So there's mitigations before you take off the lid. You got to suck out all the methane and many other things that are trapped under, because it will release a lot of toxic gases in that. But if you do it right, you bleed that all off, you store it, convert it, and have it produce energy, and it powers their fleet, and they can start deprogramming all of their landfills. And so can the Chicago streets and sanitation. Truly, now unwinding them and recapturing that land. And do you know what it does? Because when you build things on top of a landfill, you talk about sinkholes. Well, if things are going right, that land is going to collapse. So you're building things on top of it, like golf courses and that. You know, a landfill is supposed to collapse. It turns it into gas, it deteriorates, and it's not a solid structure. The stuff under it is supposed to be decaying. And when it decays, it shrinks. And when it shrinks, the land collapses. So when you build parks upon it and everything, eventually the park is going to collapse into the landfill. So whoever thought of that didn't really think long run, only short run, but you have a pending freaking nightmare. And so they can unwind their freaking nightmares. And it pumps a shitload of money, because that land now becomes prime land, like in Hong Kong and other places. And that means places like Waste Management or the city of Chicago or the city of New York starts reclaiming shitloads of land that goes from shitty real estate, truly, to pristine real estate. And they get to burn off everything in it and detoxify it so they don't have ecological nightmares waiting for them. Because it's a guaranteed 100% it won't leach, because it doesn't exist. And so whatever they can't recycle, they put into the plasma furnace. So one way or another, they're making money. It's a perfect model. So again, they didn't think about that, but there is so much metal in those landfills, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyways, so there's a great opportunity in them around the world. Every country has them, and lots of them. And do you know how much that land? Just give me the landfills. That's all I want. I'll take every landfill in the world. I'll just set up a fund, say Vanguard I pitch it to, Vanguard and BlackRock. They can be both investors, because how can you say that? I issue shares. And those shares can go into funds at Vanguard and BlackRock and PIMCO and Capital Asset Group, which is American funds, and that. So, again, they would be my funding vehicle. And I go around purchasing every landfill in every country in the world. That's all I want. Do you know how much land that is? It's unbelievable. And it solves the waste management problems in Mexico with the solid waste. Now, the water treatment plants, when you're doing the landfills, why wouldn't you get into water treatment plants at the same time? And why isn't waste management into water treatment plants? Because if I was them, I'd be integrating into all forms of waste, whether it's liquid waste or solid waste or space waste, because eventually they have packaging and everything, and they're going to have to discard certain things, and there's going to be off-world waste management. So again, all that space debris right now, waste management can get into. Truly. And that's a company I think of, and that's where, you know, Wayne Huizenga and all the others, and maybe Elon Musk, really is about cleaning up space. And there's hundreds of dead satellites that need to be captured, and there's tons of material in them. So we can clean up space, and then they get further recapture and disintegrate. Once they do the dead satellites and capture the space race, then they can retire satellites. And so it's waste management for satellites. They decommission them, and it's vertically integrated. So they have a lot of opportunity to get into these different fields they're not into. I mean, yeah, fracking and all that, just any waste from any industry. So there's a lot of diversification they can get into. And so So, I guess no one else is worried about their ears getting damaged. So they must have stronger ears than me, because I'm telling you, you don't want to live with tinnitus. So, again, it's something you don't want to live with. It is very maddening. You have to deal with it, but it truly is unstabilizing. So, they seem to not worry about it. So, I guess, you know, go ahead and do that. Because why does it seem like I'm the only one suffering with this? So it's amazing that I get all these different things, and then I get these motherfuckers who can speak back to me. I don't get it. If I was on the other side and I was healthy, I would beat the living fucking shit out of them. I'd be like, hey bro, if you talk back to him again, the next time I'm going to eliminate you. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So you get grace this time. Next time, there is no grace. It will be applied immediately. Without hesitation. I don't care if you're looking, you're not looking. It doesn't matter. You're going to receive it. As fast as God's speed. So unlike you pussyfoot around, I'm for swift legislation, not bureaucracy. I like things moving very, very, very fast. Because the longer you wait, the more they suffer. So I'm not like you. I have a massive sense of urgency because I've been on the backside of it my whole fucking life. Where you don't think about it because it's not you. And you think, well, time, it doesn't matter. We can wait 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Well, let's make it all of you. And then tell them they got 10, 20, 50 years to suffer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in pure pain. And as you say, you did it to me and I didn't do anything wrong. So, I don't get it. There is no sparing innocence anymore then. Because if it can be done to me, then it should be done to everybody. So if they're not in incredible 24 hours a day fucking pain, and I mean pain, bash their fucking skull in. Truly. So how many of those black guys have been bent over as a little kid by a huge fucking white guy beating them with a 2x4? And they're like, it's racism. Well, wouldn't that be racism? Because it's not. If it was racism, he stood up in front of the class. He said he was here to beat the shit out of every white male and white female. Exact fucking words. And he said, if any of you don't like that, tell your father and I'll beat their fucking ass. So it wasn't like, oh, if it was or wasn't. He went through multiple classrooms beating white males and females. And so this was a primarily all-white school. There was no lynching of him or anything. Just one big cover-up. Because God forbid they tell the truth about what black people did. The media has been one big fucking cover-up. It's like in Watts, my friend told me about all the fucking black guys raping the white chicks. Matt Hammond's brother played football at USC. Watts is right next to USC. They raped all the fraternity girls. I'm sick and tired of the media covering shit up. There's two sides. You don't have any problems with Tommy the Duke Morrison being banned from boxing and so on and so forth. So we're talking accountability, right? They said they want colorblind. When you're colorblind, you tell the truth no matter what color. And it's only the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. That's a true colorblind society. So no matter if it's white, Hispanic, black, Pacific Islander, you tell the fucking truth. And that is it. You protect no one. They threw themselves under the bus. And you bring in the bus and you roll right over the motherfuckers, breaking them. So they say they want that. Well, this is what it comes to when you want that. They've been preaching it, and I want to give it to them. And any fucking lying, they get prosecuted immediately. And you throw the fucking book at them. There is no more fucking hiding. So it's funny how they call accountability, but oh, that's okay with Jesse Jackson Jr. and that's okay with the mayor of New Orleans who embezzled during, the flood and everything. I'm talking about all these, or Marion Barry who did crack, or, let's go down the road. But I'm for truth. And what happens economically and everything else, I didn't plan any of that out. I tried to stop it all from happening. So how can you blame me when I was thumping on it, preventing it? I would prevented ISIS. All of that would have never happened. So how can I be blamed for any of this shit when I was an advocate to make sure it never happened? And then you turn against me? How is that fucking even possible? That just shows what big pieces of fucking shit you are. Truly, it doesn't matter if you're from the Middle East or not. I don't give a shit. You get no fucking cover. It is what it is. You shouldn't have done it. So, I believe in sparing no one. But that's what they've been calling for, and I want to give it to them. Because of what they've done to me, there is no hold bar. Because they didn't hold back in destroying my life all over fucking again. So it's a fucking joke. I don't want the news agencies covering anything up. Nothing can be reformed. Truly. We don't want the wolves in sheep's clothing. I come from Brad. There's a reason why God put me in NCPC. He stood on stage constantly talking about his drug dealing. And then when I went and I gave it to the black pastor, he told the truth. But we can't have that anymore. It was something that was then, can't be anymore. You can't give people these outs and saying, I'm going to go on the street and premeditatedly blow this person's brains out as he gave the whole narrative, and he said exactly what the gang offered him, what was given to him, what happened, how the system handled him, and it exactly fell out as they told it. And it's a bunch of shit, like this guy blowing the red light. It's like a free for fucking all. And they've been running rampant all over this fucking city. So, I don't get it. So, all of these things would have never fucking happened. Do you know how many people died? Because they didn't listen. Unfucking fathomable all over the fucking world. That would have never happened. But again, it all depends on who you listen to, doesn't it? So, it's not my fault. So, why should you be able to go on continuously punishing me in any way, shape, or form? See, that's how God sees it. All those millions of people, and we're talking millions of people, who had their lives destroyed and were killed, that any of you that touch me should be abolished instantly. Without hesitation, without remorse. There is no regret. They need to pay for their fucking crimes. So I've been on that end and trying to stop this my whole life and been taking it on the chin. When do they start getting it for their evil? I was purely innocent, the fucking lamb. And so, I don't get it. When do they have to pay for their crimes? And it's just like where I was, that was at Willow Creek. And he told the truth, the black pastor, and he was in prison ministries. And Brad was in prison ministries. And Jen was there. Now, Jen wasn't at NCPC. But she was there at Willow Creek, and it was me that wanted to go up there, and we went into that. And he told exactly his motive, what he was doing, why he did it, how he did it, and everything. And he laid it out to the people in the room. And he says that he was working on with prison ministries to try to get people, but it's better to go on the street and catch them before they fall. But I'm not against prison ministries. You do both. That's the point of night ministry. It was trying to catch them before they fell. So, you know, recapturing the night. So again, everybody has to pay for their sins. No more cheap grace. So I get pissed. Don't I have a right to be pissed? Isn't there any victims' rights when you're the abused? Don't you have a right to get pissed? So, again, like the one TV show, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. So when does that happen? When I stop having to have to take it. When the abuse of me stops. As the second coming in the Bible, there be no martyrdom. Everybody pays for their sins. That's the whole point of Revelations. So you have to pay for your sins. There is no one paying for your sins. That's the point of Jesus. The quick and the dead. Summing it up while they're alive and punishing them if they need to be when they die. So again, you don't get that. Somehow that misses you. That progression. That was a one-time deal. That deal is done. Now you pay for your sins. So that teaches people not to fuck up. And if you do, more than likely, it was an accident. That's what should be happening. Where people would be extremely afraid of doing anything intentionally. Because there's no mercy for intentional sin. You give leniency to accidents. You don't give leniency to intentional sin. So go in the Bible and I'll pull it out and put it on Tumblr. No leniency for intentional sin. So if you're intentionally tailgating me, intentionally shaking your leg, there should be no fucking leniency.